Grandmothers are supposed to knit, bake, and complain that you never call. Today, we're going over 3 times in history when the most underestimated people on earth decided they'd had enough and entire armies learned to fear them. Number one, Nancy Hart. It's 1,780 in the Georgia backcountry, and a woman named Nancy Hart is cooking dinner in her log cabin by the Broad River. Now, Nancy is not your storybook grandma. She's 6 feet tall, red haired, scarred from smallpox, and cross eyed, and she can still outshoot every man in the county. The local Cherokee have their own name for her, Wahache, war woman. Her neighbors have a simpler rule: do not mess with Nancy Hart. See, the Revolutionary War is on, and out here it doesn't look like redcoats marching in neat lines. It's neighbor against neighbor. Loyalist militias called Tories ride around the countryside, burning farms and stringing up anyone who supports independence. And since most of the patriot men are away fighting, the Tories mostly get to bully women, children, and old folks, which works out great for them everywhere except one particular cabin. Nancy has been running her own private war for a while now. The stories say she wanders into British camps pretending to be a simple-minded peddler woman, counting soldiers and muskets, then delivers everything she's seen to the patriot militias. But one evening, the war finally comes to her door. 6 Tories show up at the cabin, and they're in a bad mood. They're hunting a rebel that Nancy helped escape, and they know she did it. So to teach her a lesson, they shoot her last turkey in the yard and order her to cook it for them. Nancy looks at these 6 armed men, smiles sweetly, and says something like, "Of course, gentlemen, sit down." And here's where being underestimated becomes a weapon. She cooks the turkey, she tells jokes, and she keeps their cups full of her strongest liquor, pouring round after round while quietly sending her daughter to the spring, where the girl blows a conch shell, the family signal for trouble. Then, as the Tories get drunker and louder, Nancy starts sliding their muskets one at a time out through a gap between the logs in the cabin wall. She gets 2 guns out before they notice. The men jump up from the table, and Nancy calmly levels the 3rd musket at them. One Tory doesn't take the 6-foot cross-eyed grandma seriously and steps forward. She shoots him dead on the spot. The rest freeze while she grabs the next musket. Another man lunges, and she fires again and drops him too. And then Nancy Hart stands there holding the remaining Tories at gunpoint until her husband and the neighbors come running. Her husband, Benjamin, takes one look at the situation and says they should shoot them. And Nancy says no. Shooting, and this is a real quote, was too good for them. So the surviving Tories are marched out to a tree and hanged. For the next 100 years, historians rolled their eyes at this story. A frontier housewife out drinking and out shooting a Tory patrol? Sure, classic family legend. But in 1912, workmen grading a railroad bed next to the site of the old Hart cabin dug up a neat row of 6 skeletons buried under 3 feet of Georgia clay for about a century. Some of them had broken necks. Grandma kept receipts. Number 2, Asantewaa. It's March 1900 in Kumasi, West Africa, and the British governor of the Gold Coast, Sir Frederick Hodgson, is about to give the worst speech in the history of the British Empire. Standing before the assembled chiefs of the Ashanti people, he demands they hand over the golden stool. Now, quick context, the golden stool is not a chair. The Ashanti believe it holds the soul of their entire nation. Every ancestor, every generation, all of it. It is so sacred that it has never been allowed to touch the ground. Even the king himself does not sit on it. So naturally, Hodgson stands up in front of the chiefs and asks, "Why am I not sitting on the golden stool at this moment?" The chiefs stare at him in complete silence. This man has just asked to put his backside on the soul of their nation. And the silence is heavier than Hodgson knows, because 4 years earlier, the British had already arrested their king, Prempeh I, and shipped him into exile along with a whole generation of royals and chiefs. Among the exiled was the young ruler of the town of Ajisu. His grandmother is in the crowd listening to Hodgson speak. She is about 60 years old, and her name is Ya Asantewaa. That night, the remaining chiefs hold a secret council, and it does not go well. Some want to fight, most are afraid. They've seen what British guns do, and they talk in circles about negotiating, about patience, about asking nicely for their king back. Ya Asantewaa sits and listens to the men of her nation talk themselves into surrender, and then something inside her snaps. She rises and tells the council, and this is recorded, that if the chiefs of Asante are going to behave like cowards and refuse to fight, then they should hand over their loincloths and put on her undergarments instead. Then she seizes a rifle and fires a shot into the ground in front of them. The room goes silent. Nobody is negotiating anymore. The chiefs do something that has never happened before or since in Ashanti history. They make a woman the commander of the army. Grandma is now a war leader, and her first move is a big one. Her forces surround the British fort at Kumasi and lay siege to it, with Governor Hodgson trapped inside. The man who came to sit on their soul now spends 3 months rationing food behind a stockade while thousands of Ashanti fighters hold the jungle around him. Britain has to pull over 1,000 troops from across the empire to fight its way in, and the war cost them more casualties than any of their previous campaigns in the region. In the end, the empire's firepower wins. Ya Asantewaa is captured and exiled to the Seychelles Islands, an ocean away from home, where she dies in 1921. So the British won the war, but here's the thing. They never got the stool. The Ashanti hid it, and no British official ever laid a finger on it, let alone sat on it. The king they exiled was eventually allowed home, and the whole conflict went into the history books as the Ya Asantewaa War, which means the largest empire on earth officially has a war named after the 60-year-old grandmother who told its chiefs to put on her underwear. Today in Ghana, she's a national hero with schools named in her honor. Number 3, Tomyris. It's 530 BC on the steppes east of the Caspian Sea, and a widowed queen named Tomyris has just received a marriage proposal from the most powerful man on earth. Quick disclaimer, this story comes to us from Herodotus, the father of history, who admitted even he had heard several versions. But this is the one he found most believable, and honestly, it's too good not to tell. The suitor is Cyrus the Great, founder of the Persian Empire. This man has conquered basically the entire known world, Media, Lydia, Babylon, and built the largest empire humanity had ever seen. Tomyris rules the Massagetae, a nation of nomad horse warriors, and she took the throne after her husband died. Her adult son, Spargapises, commands her army. She reads Cyrus's proposal and understands it instantly. He isn't proposing to her, he's proposing to her kingdom. So she says no, and Cyrus, who is not used to hearing that word, responds the way he always does. He marches an invasion force to her border and starts building a bridge. But the Massagetae won't be conquered in a fair fight, so one of Cyrus's advisors suggests a dirty trick. The Persians set up a lavish camp, fill it with a feast and huge quantities of wine, and then pretend to retreat. Here's the thing. The Massagetae are steppe nomads whose idea of a wild night is fermented mare's milk. Most of them have never even seen wine. Cyrus has essentially left behind the ancient world's first open bar, and it works horribly well. Spargapises and his warriors capture the camp, celebrate their easy victory, and drink themselves unconscious. The Persian army walks back in and slaughters the sleeping camp, and the queen's son is taken alive. When Tomyris learns what happened, she sends Cyrus a message that historians still quote 25 centuries later. Give me back my son and leave my land, or, and I swear this by the sun, bloodthirsty as you are, I will give you your fill of blood. Cyrus laughs it off. Why would the conqueror of the world fear a grieving old widow. But in the Persian camp, Spargopizes sobers up, realizes he was captured drunk at a party while his men were butchered, and asks Cyrus to untie his hands. The moment they cut him loose, he takes his own life. He would rather die than be used as a bargaining chip against his mother. The news reaches Tomyris, and the grieving mother disappears. What's left is the Fill of Blood lady. She gathers every rider the Massagetae have and throws them at the Persian army in what Herodotus calls the fiercest battle ever fought between the armies of the ancient world. They shoot until the arrows run out, then close in with spears and daggers, and neither side retreats for hours. When it's over, the Persian army is destroyed, and Cyrus the Great, undefeated in 30 years of conquest, is lying among the dead. Tomyris walks the battlefield searching until she finds his body. Then she has her men fill a wineskin with human blood, cuts off the head of the most powerful man in history, and pushes it into the skin, saying, "I warned you. Now drink your fill." The man who had swallowed the whole world was finally forced to swallow something himself. And today, 2,500 years later, Tomyris has statues, movies, and her face on money across Central Asia, while Persia's own royal records stayed very, very quiet about how exactly the great Cyrus died. So that's what happened when history's grandmothers ran out of patience. The lesson here is simple. When grandma tells you to behave, behave. Let us know which war grandma we missed and what stories you want us to cover next in the comments below.